In today's video, we're diving deep into how the world is reacting to Trump's new wave of tariffs. And trust me, the reactions have been wildly different. Some countries are playing nice, others are pushing back hard, and a few are just sitting back to see how it all plays out. Let's get into it. So here's the deal. After Trump dropped his latest tariff bombshell, we've seen three kinds of responses from countries around the world: compliance, resistance, and observation. Let's start with compliance. Vietnam is the poster child here. On April 3rd, their Minister of Industry and Trade sent a formal request asking the U.S. to delay the 46% mutual tariff that was set to take effect on April 9th. In return, Vietnam pledged to lower tariffs on American LNG, automobiles, ethanol, agricultural goods, and food products. Their leader even spoke directly with Trump and promised to reach 0% tariffs on U.S. goods. Cambodia followed a similar path, asking for urgent talks and slashing tariffs on 19 categories, including motorbikes, cars, and agricultural products, from a max of 35% down to 5%, effective immediately. These countries rely heavily on exports to the U.S., and they're also indirectly involved in routing Chinese products into the U.S. via relabeling, which is part of why the U.S. slapped those high tariffs on them in the first place. Mexico, interestingly, saw this coming and acted preemptively. On April 4th, the Mexican president talked to Trump, promising stronger border security and compliance with USMCA trade rules. And guess what? Mexico didn't even appear on the April 2nd tariff list. Now let's look at resistance. China wasted no time. On April 4th, they announced immediate retaliation, including a 34% tariff on all U.S. imports, rare earth export controls, and even banning U.S. meat imports. They're clearly gearing up for a long-term battle. The EU's also not backing down. If the U.S. doesn't negotiate by April 13th, Europe plans to hit back with 260 billion euros in retaliatory tariffs, plus $190 billion in new levies on American agricultural and industrial goods. Even Canada, though not initially targeted, said they'll slap on matching 25% tariffs if U.S. auto tariffs hit. And then we have the observers: Japan, South Korea, the UK, and Australia. They've criticized the U.S. tariffs, Japan especially after getting hit with 24%, but are holding back on retaliation for now. Australia and the UK are taking a talk-first approach after getting off relatively light with 10% tariffs. So what does all this mean for investors? Now that the harsh tariffs are in play, we're moving into the action phase. Countries that complied or stayed neutral are ripe for negotiation, while those that resisted will need to find a middle ground fast. Especially with China. This can't turn into a full-on chicken game. A well-timed resolution could be the trigger for a market rebound. But for now, it's too early to expect a rally. As retaliatory tariffs kick in post-April 9th, geopolitical friction will only intensify. So where can investors hide in the short term? There are clues in recent market movements. On April 3rd, day one of the tariffs, only two sectors saw positive returns: consumer staples and food distribution. Money clearly moved into defensive, essential goods. Even during the last week of March, staples and healthcare showed relatively shallow losses. Another sign investors are getting defensive. But here's where it gets interesting. April 4th, day two of tariffs, saw a bounce in housing and durable goods. The U.S. housing and mortgage sectors outperformed thanks to falling long-term interest rates. With rate cuts now being priced in, 4 in total expected this year, mortgage rates are likely to fall, boosting housing demand. Home builders like D.R. Horton and NVR jumped over 4%, and mortgage-focused fintechs like Loan Depot and Rocket Companies soared 16% and 11% respectively. Notably, the White House has already issued executive orders aimed at boosting home supply, all of which feeds into this rally. Meanwhile, the bounce in durable goods is tied more to Vietnam's diplomacy. With Vietnam seen as a friendlier trade partner, fears around supply chain disruption eased. Brands like Nike, which sources over 60% of its products from Vietnam, jumped 3%. Deckers Outdoor, another Vietnam-heavy company, popped 5.1%. Even beyond housing and durables, we saw U.S.-centric supply chains hold up well. Lamb Weston, a potato product company with plants in Washington and Idaho, rose 9%. Lancaster Colony, a sauce distributor, gained 3.6%. Savers Value Village, a second-hand retailer operating entirely within the U.S., climbed 3.4%. These companies are gaining favor because they're insulated from trade shocks. Bottom line, supply chain geography is now a key investment factor. Companies with U.S.-based or U.S.-friendly supply networks are safer plays. The battle over tariffs is far from over, but the winners and losers are already starting to show. That's it for today, folks. Drop a like if you found this breakdown helpful, and let us know in the comments how your portfolio is positioned during all this chaos. Subscribe for more market deep dives. See you in the next one.